out there today?
Yeah, it was hot. It was worse
April.
yesterday.
Yeah, it was hotter yesterday, more humid, I think.
But this is like our first time getting like heat like this because it's been really cold and raining for
I know.
like a long time.
Same in Charleston. That's why it surprised me. I mean, I didn't know. I'm glad I was going to wear jeans. I was telling you.
Okay, quiet on the set.
Oh.
Stand by.
Okay. What camera do I look
I'm not sure.
at? Okay. I'll just.
Hi, my name is Destinee, and today we're here with Holly Herrick, and she is an author and also a cookbook. So can you please tell us about your career?
Career, well, it's kind of three parts at least, I think. But starting with studying and working in the field of journalism quite a while back. And then I developed an interest in cooking and specifically food writing not long after I got married because I had time to cook and just really redeveloped a love for it and decided I wanted to work it into my career. But before I did that, I worked as a restaurant critic. I did a lot of newspaper work, a lot of food writing for magazines, and in the last 7 years I've written 7 cookbooks, so let's call me lucky.
So can you tell us what inspired you to start writing cookbooks? Like, where did the love come from for you to like start cooking? Was it your grandma? Was it your mother? Like, where did it come from?
Definitely my grandmother on my father's side. Her name was Nana. It was really inspired me a lot to cook because I didn't talk about this earlier, but she had a difficult life, not an easy life financially or in many ways, and of course raised her children during the Depression and saw a lot of sad things happen. But my grandfather worked for, who moved here from Ireland quite a long time ago, but was a manager of a grocery store chain. So there was always food on my father's table when there wasn't for a lot of people in the 30s. And so she loved to cook for people, not just her family, but others to help feed them. So I always loved that about her. She was a fantastic cook. And I also loved to cook as a child, but just didn't really, my life and my career didn't get me there until later. I just think I think cooking food to me is almost like a form of art, because you're creating something, and you're creating something that's hopefully delicious and that people will enjoy eating. So it's kind of a win-win, except for the dishes.
That's good. So can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day life? Like, what do you go through as being like a cookbook author and all that stuff?
Well, the cookbook, the process of the cookbook from beginning to end is sort of, there's maybe 7 different steps, and that depending on where you are in the journey, most of your focus tends to be on whatever the step is. So for the beginning, of course, it's getting the contract from the publisher. So that's a lot of marketing. That's spending time on the computer, then and starting to think about it and writing the outline. Then the next step is actually writing it and coming up with the recipes and writing them. And then the next step is the photography, the photo shoots, and then the next step is the long one of editing it. And then you wait until the book comes out, but in that period of time you're marketing it. You're setting up, you're setting up events, you're setting up appearances, it's a big job. It's a 7-hat job, I think. I think I got at least 6. So day to day I usually get up, get fairly early, have a little breakfast, and my cookbooks aren't the only thing I do, but it's a big part of it, especially in recent years. Do my social media work in the morning, and then it's like sometimes like a day-to-day, like today I'm out and about doing something related to the cookbooks, or another day I'm teaching a class. It's different every day, which I guess is a good thing.
Yes, that sounds a little difficult to go through
some
every
days I
day.
do nothing, I admit that too. Try to reserve that for the weekends.
So earlier you mentioned that you studied in France. Like, what made you go to France? Like, why not like stay in the U.S. and then study?
Well, I certainly was open to the only reason I think I studied French rather, and well, I suppose France too, in school. We studied the language, French language, since I was in 3rd or 4th grade. So I was always drawn to the culture and the language. But by the time I decided I wanted to go I wanted to specialize my writing more food specifically, I was fortunate enough to run into Julia Child, of course, one of my childhood idols, a great American French chef. And I asked her, what should I do? Where should I go to get my credentials? And she said, can you go to the Cordon Bleu? And I was really, really like super blessed and lucky to be able to say yes, I could in that point in my life, because it's not something everybody is able to do. But not only did I go for the first 3 months, which is what she recommended, but I went for the whole Grand Diplôme. So it was everything in cuisine and pastry. It was wonderful. I think it's the best training. I agree with Julia. I think classical French training is it's the most structured, but also eventually fluid ways of learning to cook, I think.
Yeah, which is a nice place to go learn and cook. But did you in your process of making your cookbooks, did you stumble across any obstacles that were well, we can't publish this now, we have to wait, or we can't do this?
No. I think the only stumbling, once the publisher, I guess what you're asking is that the publisher didn't have any issue with, I can't think of a single recipe that she didn't like, or the editor didn't like. I think the biggest roadblock ever along the way was just 7 cookbooks. So each of them, the recipes are for the most part original in my brain, except for classics like Boeuf Bourguignon. But I try to put a twist on it that's personal, that kind of fits with my style. I think the only roadblock is some days I just didn't have it. My brain didn't. It was tired from creating ideas, and sometimes I had to stop and just stop creating for a day. But literally, you just hit a wall. It's like that, no doubt, for you in school a little bit.
It can get tiring.
Yes. But other than that, no. I think the process that's the most boring, but also one of the most important, is the editing part. And that's a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, editing is a lot of difficulty. Well, can you explain your expression that you got when you first seen your cookbook published in the store? Or how did you feel?
Oh, even before the cookbook, just to get the contract, I think I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I think that having a book published is a little bit more exotic sounding than the reality. You hear words like she's on tour, or she just contracted to write her 8th cookbook, or he just sold 8 million copies of his novel. And all those things happen, but it's kind of like anything, it doesn't happen to everybody. But to me, my first cookbook was the Southern Farmers Market Cookbook, and when I was signing the contract with the publisher, had actually flown out from Utah to have dinner at my house, and I proceeded to burn the steaks, the grass-fed steaks, underneath my broiler, so that the firemen, the full regalia, came down my street and showed up at my door, which the publisher fortunately thought was very amusing. But I was so excited that I couldn't hardly even focus on cooking. So, and then seeing the book for the first time that's the best, because you know by that time what the cover's supposed to look like, that you're actually holding it. So I liken it to I don't have children, so they're like my babies. They're my little babies.
That's cool. So when he came to dinner, did you cook him anything out of your cookbook?
Yes, I had. Well, let's see. Had I written the cookbook? No, I hadn't, because I was just contracting. What I did was, because this book is about simple and seasonal cooking with farmers market inspired, so I went and shopped at the farmers market and bought stuff that is typical of the type of recipes in this book. A few of these recipes in this book come from a cooking column I did for the newspaper. It's possible I used one of them. I honestly can't remember. I remember I was so nervous, in a good way. He was really amused. He still mentions it every once in a while when I see him. He's no longer working for this company, about the firemen. It was really amusing.
Well, can you tell us about your favorite dish? What's your favorite dish to cook that, you can just do it any day?
Well, for example, last night I cooked super, super simply. I found a nice steak at the grocery store yesterday, and I was going to, just wanted to sear it off, get a nice, really nice, just a little steak, a little ribeye. And I had some leftover mashed potatoes that I made with a little green salad. Or my favorite thing, because I think it's so versatile, and so easy, is to just do a nice little omelet with some cheese and some fresh herbs inside. Again, a little green salad and some bread. Very Frenchy. I don't like to eat a lot, especially at night. I think it's all, I mean, I love to eat, but I don't like to eat heavily at night, so I tend to eat my biggest meals during the day.
Yeah, that's the best time to do it anyway.
Thanks.
Well, since you're a cookbook publishing author, like in your family, are they like always, well, like, Holly, can you cook for us, or can you make this for us?
They don't usually have to ask because I love to do it, especially for my parents, because my mom really appreciates good food. She really waits for meals. That's like her life. No, because I don't mean to make her sound like a glutton. She just really appreciates my cooking. So I love cooking during the holidays and for friends, and yeah, they'll ask me to cook. I mean, even when I was a little girl, when I was 12 or 10 or something, I do remember them asking for this because I was sort of the family pro popcorn maker. So I'd pull out the Orville Redenbacher and, you know, the actual pan, not the Jiffy Pop, and make it and make the butter. And everybody still talks about that, my popcorn.
It was probably the best dish that they had at the time.
Probably maybe ever. Now I put fresh thyme in it and some black pepper too.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite holiday that you like to cook for, like a
Yes,
special style?
absolutely. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, bar none, because there aren't other distractions. I mean, of course, Easter and Christmas are important, but for very much religious reasons, for many people, certainly me, which to me is a distraction. But for normally Thanksgiving, for me, it's all about the nurturing and giving thanks, and there's usually a little time to prepare for it. And I like making turkey, and I like making gravy. Definitely Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's
I've done many, many Thanksgivings for my family.
That's awesome. So do you like admire any other like famous cooks like Rachel Ray, or do you like watch the Food Network and compare like their food to what you're doing?
I do watch the food. The Food Network is normally I have my lunch about 1. I work most of the morning, really all morning, and I'll take lunch around 1, or actually not 1 because there's somebody on then that I can't tolerate on the Food Network. About 2 o'clock, there are a few Food Network stars that I really admire. One is, I admire Rachel Ray for what she's accomplished, but which is a lot. But I really love Anne Burrell, who does Secrets of a Restaurant Chef, because she really knows how to cook, and I think she's a really good teacher. I think she's really good at what she does. She's the one with the spiky yellow hair.
Oh yeah.
She sort of is always doing that. I also admire a lot because of her talent and her ability to teach and also to cook really delicious food, Ina Garten. But a Food Network, yes, I do watch it, and I do, as I think we were speaking earlier, not here, but love to watch Chopped, because it's a lot like cooking school. We would get a basket and you create, so that's fun to me. It's like putting together the pieces of a culinary puzzle.
That's true. So like, what is your like favorite thing to cook, like pastries, or like, you know, the soul food, or like, you know, Italian food? So I break it down normally into, well, in terms of flavor profiles, sweet and savory, and then within that there's like soups or comfort food or fancy food. I definitely like eating and cooking more savory food than I do pastries or sweets, although I've done a fair amount of that in my life in several cookbooks. And within the savory category, I think my absolute favorite, especially when it's cold, but really, I love putting on a stew, a beautiful braised stew. I have a lot of recipes. One with pork and apples, several boeuf bourguignon, several French classics, daubes or stews, because you use an inexpensive cut of meat, typically, not always with meat, typically, and you just cook it for a long, slow time with a bunch of vegetables and flavors, and the kitchen smells amazing. Your appetite builds, and then you just sit down and it's so comforting and nurturing. And it usually gets better with time if there's anything left over. That's good. So could you tell us about your experience at Cordon Bleu while you were in France? Like, what were the chefs like the whole environment, and how did you enjoy it?
I loved it. It was different than I anticipated. It was very, very, very multicultural. There were some American students. I, of course, was one of them, but there were a lot of Japanese students a lot of women, in particular from South America. And I can't remember exactly how it broke down, but about 40 students in my class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was a total mix of me, a sort of trying to get my credentials to be a food writer. I remember there was a young man there who was a food historian who was trying to get more culinary experience for his work. There were several chefs or line cooks that were working in restaurants in the U.S. that wanted to get better. And then there were, I hate to say it, but it's true, there were all those young ladies from South America. Most of them came from very wealthy families and were beautiful. And I think mom and dad wanted them to know how to cook so they could snag a nice guy, hopefully a rich one. They were adorable though, they're really sweet.
That's cool. I want to visit France one day. So like when you're at home, do you prefer like the 30-minute meals, or like do you feel the urge to like cook every single day, or you just take out?
Definitely not, and not a lot of takeout. It's hard for me to cook for just one, especially if I've had a really long day, especially since I don't have a lot of appetite at night. So like I said, I think I said, or I told someone today, like last night I just had a steak, and just a simple steak, and I really enjoyed it. I don't do takeout a lot, because when I am eating out, it's usually to do a little bit of research just for the restaurant scene for Charleston, which I write about on my blog, or like to stay current about for other writing assignments. So it's when I cook at home, it's not, when it's just me, it's not much. I mean, I'm not going to sit down and make a beef bourguignon for me. Now, if my boyfriend is coming in from Williamsburg and a couple of other friends, absolutely. Just because I love to eat, I enjoy eating good food, but I get even more pleasure out of cooking it.
That sounds like a cookbook. So, like, how was your transition from Boston to France and to Charleston? Like, how did you just make that whole circle?
Yeah, it was, there's a couple of other points in between Minneapolis and Wyoming. And, well, the French connection just happened because that's where Julia said to go to school. And I had to train to speaking the language. But, and I actually was in Minneapolis at that time when I went back and forth to Paris. Boston was just where I grew up, and it's where I went to school. Charleston happened because I was living in Wyoming. After Minneapolis, my husband and I moved to Wyoming, which I loved. But then when my marriage ended, I was so far away from home by then that my family lives on the East Coast. I felt it was time to get closer to home. And I was tired of snow. And I did not want to live in Florida or Boston, so I figured Carolinas, someplace in between.
Yeah.
And I love history, so I picked 10 target cities. Charleston was the first one I came to. I fell in love, and I got a job in one weekend. So I was like, okay.
Wow.
Fell in love with the city, not a man in one weekend, but the city. Yeah.
That's cool.
And I've been here 15 years, the longest anywhere.
So would you ever go back to France and like expand your career, or do you prefer to stay in Charleston?
At this point, in terms of study, there's not really much more for me to do in France that I haven't learned in France. I could go there on a professional level, I guess, and there's several writers that cover the restaurant scene in Paris, but I'm probably better suited to do that in Charleston. I don't think I'd ever go back to France. It would just be for fun. I have this theory that once you've experienced something fully and wonderfully, it's almost tempting fate to go back and try to experience it again, and it's the same way, because you're ultimately almost always disappointed. But I am due for a trip there, though. I need cheese at a minimum. I love French cheese. Yeah.
It's
sometimes you're right, not always.
So getting like kind of personal, like what is your like perfect day? Like how would you describe your perfect day?
Ooh, this is easy. Okay. Perfect day is, I'm lucky because I have a lot of perfect days, because I've gotten old enough now that I have very little patience for certain things. Like, I hate rushing, I hate noise, I hate cacophony. So I try to stay away from all of it. So my favorite day involves one where I sleep until I wake up, and I wake up naturally, no noise, no cat crying for food. That happened today. That's if I slept late. Then I like to go to the gym after I eat a light breakfast, and for me that means swimming. I swim practically every morning.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because it just, to me, it's very relaxing, but also restorative, and it's good for me.
So you have your own pool?
No, I don't. I don't have a pool.
Just a gym.
There's a place called the Wellness Center in Charleston that has a great, big, wonderfully maintained pool.
Oh, okay.
An Olympic-sized pool. Then come home, give my dog a nice long walk, start catching up. Oh, I forgot. I've already done my social media stuff before breakfast, and then just sit down and start doing work, whatever it is, whether it's doing marketing work, recipe development, whatever the day brings. And I usually wrap up about 4 with a little nap and get up, walk the dog again, and make the light dinner. And then I check out and watch the news and the TV and relax. I mean, it's pretty nice when I have days like that. I mean, I know that probably sounds incredibly boring to you, but
No, it's not.
okay.
So can you tell us like your social media where like people can go and learn more about you in your day-to-day life?
Facebook is Holly Herrick, Holly Herrick, HOLLYHERRICK. Gosh, I don't even know any of my handles. Twitter, I think, is at Holly Herrick. I'm on Pinterest, again, Holly Herrick. And I just don't know all my stuff. I have it all at home written down. And then, of course, there's my website, hollyherrick.com, where you can go and find out about all my cookbooks, and all the other stuff is also all there.
That's great. Well, thank you for coming
Thank
today
you.
and
My pleasure.
interviewing you. And you can always go to her website at hollyherrick.com to learn more about her.
Thank you.
I think that's over.
And we're clear.
Why? Was it terrible?